Your one goal is to really break 1500 on the SAT. You got to realize you only have 2 more weeks until the November SAT, and honestly, not that much time before the December SAT, right? So you should be going overdrive with your prep, sacrificing things for the next week if you're taking November, but honestly, sacrificing things for this temporary amount of time so you can get the long-term benefit of getting a good SAT score, right? Here's exactly what you should do to be more efficient, right? Because if you can be more efficient and work the same amount of time as somebody else, you're going to get double their score if you can double your efficiency. And it's actually really easy to do that with these small little things that are going to boost your prep. So hi, I'm Karthik. This is getting to 1500 as fast as possible. All right, let's get right into it. Section attention division, right? You already know that you need to divide your attention between the sections just generally based on how you're scoring in them, right? But how do we accurately figure out what that is in a way that actually makes sense? And then how do we measure the differences, right? So make sure that it's not constantly changing, and make sure that our levels are accurate to where we are right now, not a test we took in the past. And how do we make sure that we're dividing it within the section and what we're doing within the section? So I'm going to go over all of that, and that is the essential core to efficiency, right? So if you've been practicing recently, your levels have probably increased from your last test that you've taken if it's less than a week ago, right? Or more than a week ago. If it's less than a week ago, honestly, 5 days is a good benchmark. If your recent practice test that you've taken or released QAS that you've taken is less than 5 days ago, you probably need to reassess where you are because it might have changed, right? Depending on if your sections are ridiculously close. But let's say you have a 790 reading, but a 500 math. Obviously, your attention is going to be math, right? So adjust to where you think you are, but ultimately it's where you're referencing them. What is your base reference of score? And this is how you figure that out, right? You need to reevaluate your score with the practice test or released QAS. Practice tests, obviously, you know where to find them on the College Board website. Released QASs, they're a little bit hard to find online. You might be able to find them on Reddit. I have a collection of them in my private community, but if your practice test is less than 5 days ago, you need to be doing that. You need to figure out not only your section score, but the curve that you have, right? So what exactly is your section score, and what is the curve for that section, right? And here's where you can actually find all the curves of old exams, right? The curves are actually very well documented of all the past exams on the SAT Reddit. If you look up the thing and you look up curve in the search bar on the SAT Reddit, you can find the exact curves based on reports of other students, and they've literally broken down what the curve is to where every single answer is wrong, what exactly your score would be, or a hypothetical measure of what your score could be based on it. It's so well documented on there. You can find them for a bunch of old tests, right? But your breakdown of grammar and reading should be tested, not just the whole section, but within that. And it's not the actual accuracy, it's the score that they give you that's out of 300, right? So they give you, or out of 400, they give you a score, let's say you got a 300 reading, 300 writing, then in total, right, that's a 600 out of 800. What is that individual breakdown of score? That's what you need to figure out, right? And also get your raw score. And the most essential thing that's going to be important for the next step of this video is what are the types of skills that you got incorrect, right? This is going to be very useful for when you're actually preparing. The types of skills you got incorrect. What is the actual thing that you got incorrect, right? And why did you get it incorrect? That's something you should eventually figure out, right? So this is the next part of attention division. How do we split it based on that, right? So obviously you split based on your weakest sections, but here's how you adjust it, right? Multiply 2 by that by 400 reading and grammar score, so you get an even split between all three. So you have math and then a reading score out of 800 and then a grammar score out of 800, right? And what you want to do is compare them in the sense of section accuracy, right? So how more accurate were you in math than you were in grammar and reading, right? And what you want to do is start off with generally the same time, right? So 33%, 33%, and then the last 33%, right? And then basically what you want to do is just divide between that, right? So let's say I realize my math score is pretty high and my English score is weak. I'm going to take some time for math and give it to reading, right? And now once you do that, when you figure out how much worse your splits are in terms of what you're doing, when you do that trading figure enough to figure out what is your true raw method, that is where you figure out exactly how much you have, right? Exactly how much time you should be allocating. But on top of that, you need to figure out doing this process, right? You should do this process weekly almost, right? If you have a week, that is, right? If you don't have a week, then it's not really necessary and you should just keep going with whatever your split is, but do this on a weekly basis if you have a long time period, right? Okay, the reading section specifically. Accurate practice and volume is how you improve, right? You need accurate practice material. You need to be using practice tests or Khan Academy or some sort of official College Board resource. I've been through this so many times, right? But students still mess up and use this. If you use unofficial material, you're not going to be going by the specific guidelines that College Board has to create those questions. And as a result, you're going to be creating strategies for the wrong types of questions that aren't even going to show up on the exam, or might be the same type, but want you to do it in a different way than how the official SAT is. So you're just screwing yourself by doing that. You're not going to get what you want by doing that, right? So be more efficient than 99% of people by using strategies, right? So efficiency is a concept that we talk about. You do the same amount of time as another person, but since your tactic is more efficient, you're going to get more out of your prep, right? So don't hope to just improve organically. While it is very much possible to improve organically, and that's what most people do, and they still get excellent scores, that implies that you have like 8 months. If you have 8 months, you just do it organically. Of course, you can get a really good score off that, but you don't have 8 months. You have probably less than 2 months, right? Force your improvement by using strategies. Identify for every single question why you got it wrong. That's literally, I know so many people who just like take the reading section, get problems wrong, and you're like, oh, I got it wrong, and then they just practice again. Why would you do that? Right? Identify why you got problems wrong. Figure out the reasoning for why the correct answer is correct, why your wrong answer is wrong. Improve based on that. Figure out a way next time, right, that you're not going to miss that why. Let's say it was specific detail in a specific part of a passage. Make sure next time you never miss that. Make sure next time you have a specific reading strategy so you never miss that. Make sure next time the specific detail is something that you definitely go over when you reread the passage when you see that question. Figure out some sort of strategy that's going to make sure you don't miss the why. Apply it. Make sure it works. If it doesn't work, tweak it a little bit or completely scrap it and change it based on a new why that comes up when you got it wrong. And then just keep adjusting the strategy until it becomes bulletproof, until you take in 5 types of questions and then you just don't get any of those wrong, right? Iterations of doing that, the cycle I just applied, right, for specific types of questions, and just focus on one to start. Do multiple as soon as you've got one down, right, and pick your weakest one to start so you can see the most improvement. Iterations of this cycle is going to get you a significantly higher score. And honestly, if you're taking December, right, because if you're taking November, you definitely should consider taking December as well. You have 5 weeks. If you put in all 5 weeks to do this, I guarantee you can blast your score like 300 points if you're at a 500, right? Like I guarantee you can get into like 760 plus at minimum, right? At least go from like a 300 in the reading to 400, right? I guarantee that it's possible. Okay, grammar. Either you generally don't know the skill, right? So you don't know the grammar concept, or you just need to practice with harder examples, right? So a lot of people think they know the skill, but then, like a student of mine thought they know the skill. And then I asked them specifically like, what is this? Why is this wrong? And they were like, this is where their answers, right? It doesn't sound right. And it doesn't flow with the sentence. If you say anything like that, you do not know the skill, right? And honestly, realize that for grammar, a bulk of the work is learning the skill. Once you learn it, right? And you just stop putting it off and you actually learn that explicit skill, and you go over your incorrect answers on the test and figure out what those skills are that you're getting wrong. Figure out if you know the skill. If you do that, that's like the 80 or 90% of the work. Only 10% of it is just practicing it. And once you have it memorized through practicing it, you're getting it right every single time, right? So if those were your reasons for why you got questions right, you know it's wrong, right? Here's what you should specifically say, right? The independent clause could not have been combined with that other independent clause in the phrase because it was only using a comma, and it needs a comma and a word from fanboys in order to combine them, or a semicolon, or some other way that is actually correct in combining independent clauses instead of the one that they used, which was just a comma, which is incorrect. If you know exactly every single element of grammar, right? Because spoken English is not the same as written English. A lot of people will have a deficiency in grammar in written English because they're just not used to memorizing all of these explicit grammar rules. So if you just do that, you're going to get your skill level up. If you cannot identify the skill of the question that you got wrong to that level, then you're just leaving your score up to chance. You're just leaving it up to your ear. You're just leaving it up for grabs, right? The hardest questions you're going to need to know the rules to such a high extent, right? Attack them with Khan Academy. If you don't know the rules, watch the videos on Khan Academy. And I actually just found out about this, like College Panda, right? The book that I recommend a lot for grammar. I have it right next to me here. It's the College Panda SAT Writing Advanced Guide and Workbook. It's the 2nd edition. I recommend just to get the latest edition, and make sure if it's paper, you're getting the paper one. If it's DSAT, you're getting the DSAT one, right? But make sure online, I found that he actually posts blogs, right? And if you just look up commas College Panda SAT, he has a whole thing about it and the specific uses. So you can learn all the call SAT specific uses of commas from there. Do that. That's going to be so useful, and it's free. He has literally a free version of it in his blogs online. So just do that, right? Search up the skill in College Panda. I recently found it. It's just amazing. All right. Math. The same thing applies, but except now the bulk of like your practice is actually going to be in like the actual practice stage. The learning skill is actually like the easiest portion of it, and probably takes like 30 minutes to master every single skill, right? I mean, individually, of course, right? So in 30 minutes, you could probably like master one or two skills. So the whole test in terms of like what the content is, you could probably master in 5 hours, right? But the bulk of the work is with practicing, right? Because they give you increasingly hard examples, and that's the reason you don't know how to apply the method from the examples they give you, because the examples are difficult, right? So you need to figure out if that's actually the case. Why do you get the questions wrong? Was it because you don't know the method, or was it because you didn't know how to apply it in the context, right? Okay. First thing with the method, learn it online, right? Use YouTube and Khan Academy, right? I've said this before and so many times, Organic Chem Tutor, Khan Academy videos for math. Both of those people are great. Just for YouTube, just find the most reputable one and the one that has just the highest likes. And the one that's going to be most viewed and highest likes for that topic is just going to be the one that's like probably the most correct, because a lot of people have confided in it. It means it's gotten a lot of eyes, which means it's probably the most accurate. And check the comments to see if it's accurate too, right? And if you don't know it and you can only struggle, or you do know it and you only struggle with the application, practice, right? Khan Academy literally increases the difficulty based on your skill level on that type of problem. So isolate the skill, right? Figure out what it is, go on Khan Academy and just do the practice and get to that 4 out of 4 mastery level and get 12 right on mastery, right? Just get so many right on mastery that you just like know that you have it on by the back of your palm, right? You just like are able to tackle any difficult problem. And it's being able to tackle the problems on the highest difficulty that's going to guarantee that on the SAT, you're going to be able to get it. Okay. This is the recap of everything. The prerequisite of all of this is that you're doing as much as possible. It's that you're putting as much effort as you possibly can into getting this dream score of yours, right? Just if you do as much iterations of all of these things, that's how you get your score. So effort, accurate practice, and the amount of volume that you do, the total amount that you do, is the true limitation and driver of practice, right? But if you want to be more efficient with that, here's what you got to do. You got to separate the time between the sections, allocate it based on highly specific method that I described that's going to differentiate the time between sections, and also what you should do within every section. We covered, right? Reading, accurate practice, creating strategies. Make sure you do that. Grammar and math, it's either a mix. For grammar, right? It's specifically learning the skill and then the application, right? That's the easier part. For math, learning the skill is the easier part, and doing the application, the practice, that's the hardest part, right? And how you know where you are is just based on what your reasoning is for the question you got it incorrect, right? So for grammar, like if you describe like those like kind of wishy-washy reasons for why you got it wrong, right? Or why you think your answer is correct, then that's wrong, right? If you know the concrete reason, then you're good to go and you need to start practicing more, right? For math, if you just don't know the method, you got to learn it. If you do know the method, but you're like, oh, how do I use it for this type of question? Like, I know what this is, but I don't know how to apply it. I'm stuck, right? I'm stuck. That's the key word. That's where you're like, okay, I need to actually practice increasingly harder examples and start with the easier ones and see how some other people do it. Khan Academy gives you full explanations of that. If you're interested in SAT prep, click the link down in the description below. Thank you guys so much, and I really hope you learned something today.